Hello and welcome back to Not the Old Firm YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks. Today's video is going to be pretty large, going to be pretty confusing, but pretty interesting at the same time. I don't think you should probably start a video like that, but we are going to anyway. There is a lot of explaining to do, a lot to get through before getting to the actual video, so we'll get started straight away. As you've already seen in the title and the graphic we've got on this, it is a video with Dunfermline's new majority shareholders and chairman DAFC Fussball GmbH, if I've got that all in the right frame, and Dunfermline chairman Ross McArthur. So if you do enjoy content on this, do remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I alluded to it a bit yesterday on the channel that this video would be coming. The Dunfermline Athletic announced during the week that the new German investors that have been in and around the club for the last sort of year or so, been talk about it, or just over that anyway, have become the majority shareholders. They've announced a load of new exciting plans from the training ground to the youth academy, different bits and bobs, and they held a press conference on Wednesday to discuss all. It is pretty lengthy. It was, I think, in total around 47 minutes, I think I've got on the Zoom call. Plenty discussed. If you don't know, if you are watching this just for an insight into the new goings on at Dunfermline, have a bit of insight. First of all, you will hear from Ross McArthur. It's pretty easy to identify. He's got the Dunfermline boards behind him, and I'm assuming if you're a Dunfermline fan, you know all about Ross McArthur. In terms of the investors, there are 4 investors. Apologies for not looking directly into the camera. I'm sort of having to read this all off, so I do not get any of it wrong because there is a fair bit of it. The key investors are Thomas Megel, Damir Kennedy, Nick Taylor, and Dr. Albrecht Gunderman. I think I've got that right. Apologies if I haven't. The first 3, Megel, Kennedy, and Taylor, are all on the Zoom call. Don't know what they look like, should be able to identify them pretty easily. But Thomas Megel is with the white headphones and the white shirt and the headphones. Damir in the blue shirt, and then Nick in the white. So should be able to identify them. Should move in order of sort of like that. Should be speaking to Thomas Megel. To give a wee bit of background on him, he was a player, a former manager, sport director, well involved at the German club St. Pauli, which is where his sort of football background, to me anyway, from this, I get the vibe that he's sort of the football brains behind this sort of consortium. Got Damir Kennedy, who is a professional tennis player, who was a former professional tennis player, competed at the Davis Cup in the 1980s. Of course, he's done a wee bit more than that, well involved in the business circles as well. And finally, on the call, you've got Nick Taylor, who is a financial expert based in Germany. Knew I was missing something at the end of that. But yeah, it's pretty lengthy. It might get a bit confusing in stages with the way it's been recorded. You won't hear the actual questions, you will hear the answers, but it should be fairly straightforward to gauge what they're talking about their plans for the future of Dunfermline Athletic. Thomas Megel, for example, wanting to develop a bit like St. Pauli, and a few other different bits involved in terms of the finances and how things are going to work. So we'll hope you do enjoy. If you do find it a bit confusing, then do apologise. It has been a bit thrown together, mishmash style, but we hope that it provides some sort of insight into how Dunfermline is going to be run in both the short term and the long term. So we hope you do enjoy. Do remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time.
My answer would be why we were generally interested in the club, because I understand that's also part of the question. Well, we got together a couple of years ago and just kind of decided we felt like owning and running a football club, because we thought, funny enough, that we were 4 guys that had different competencies, who did reasonably well, all of us in their fields of work. And 2 of us, Nick and myself, had actually left the executive positions we were in, and we kind of had time to look into what we wanted to do with the rest of our lives, where we felt it was worthwhile. And Thomas just coincidentally had put together a presentation of many charts where he thought it was a good idea to consult maybe people or entities that were interested in buying clubs, because he felt that there were so many mistakes being made just because of people wanted to be in the limelight, or because they felt they were so rich that they could do whatever they wanted. So he put together this whole list and asked me whether I thought it was a good idea to start an agency like that. And just the discussion started to evolve, and it turned out, we said, well, let's not, Thomas, don't make an agency, just run and own a club by yourself with the three of us. And why with the three of us? Because we all had different backgrounds and know-hows. Thomas, as you probably know, comes from football himself. He was a player, first division in Bundesliga in Germany for St. Pauli. Then he had the highest coaching license that you can make. And he also worked as a coach then, and also as a sporting director. He has a great network worldwide, really, in terms of scoutings and finding the right players. And he's maybe, Thomas, don't listen to this, but he actually is a smart guy, very smart guy, very unusual. He actually started to study philosophy before he became a football player. So we felt that his thoughts really, were very, very strong and good and made sense to us. Now, Nick has a background in finance. He was one of the top finance people in Germany. He has an English and German background. Last year he was still on the board of the Commerzbank. He was supposed to head up the board, but then he decided, no, he's not going to do that because he won't have enough time for the football club. Maybe not quite true, but that's the way I like to interpret it. Anyway, he has this very strong background in finance, not unimportant when you want to run a club or help running a club. Al, who is not here today because he's not on the board, and he is not going to be actually spending time in Dunfermline, but his background is in legal. He's a lawyer. And I myself, I come from sports marketing. I worked for IMG for 9 years. I don't know if you guys know IMG International Management Group. The last couple of years as managing director here in Germany. So those are all areas that we felt are really decisive if you want to run a club, and now it comes without recurring operational losses, because that was our idea. It should be possible if you're smart and don't overestimate, the situations. You should be able to run a club without recurring operating losses. And we felt that we were set up in a way where we should be able to provide that if we found the right club. Now, you also have to know that, especially the older guys, Nick and me, we worked a lot of years, and we really didn't want to work anymore with people we didn't enjoy spending time with. So number one, that meant that the four guys of us, we kind of still get along, even though we started already 3 years ago looking into clubs. But we also, for us, it was very important. And now I'm coming, finally, took me a long time, but I'm coming to the point. We were looking for a club where we felt that the people we will have to deal with were on our wavelength, and that we enjoyed their company, and that we felt they had the same moral values as us, and that we felt we could implement our ideas. Now, besides the idea of trying to run a club without operating losses, we have another relatively big idea that we will communicate to you in a couple of days or maybe weeks. We're still not quite sure about that. But when we were looking for a club, we actually looked for over 2 years. We looked in Portugal, Austria, Denmark, England, and really at the end, we felt that DAFC ticked so pretty much all of the boxes, all of the things that we were looking for. It would take us too far to explain to you what all these points were, because it took Thomas 1.5 years to put them together. It's a presentation of 30 or 40 charts, as far as I remember. But it was really interesting to see how many of those boxes they ticked. And we approached Dunfermline, not the other way around. I mean, we were literally looking at all the leagues in Europe, first, second, third divisions, and then suddenly, boom, Dunfermline was the city and the club that we thought could make sense for us. And then once we met the people, and maybe we don't know them well enough, we think we know after 1.5 years, it seemed, wow, these are really great guys. and the ideas that we want to get through, seems like they're very happy to do this with us. And also you have to understand, actually, Thomas, Nick, and I, we will actually be spending, once we're allowed to travel, a lot of time in Dunfermline. We're not just putting money in, we actually want to help. However, all of us feel that the people that are in the position, in the board position, and have done a great job, and there's no reason to really take them away. We just want to add our know-how to what's existing there, and hopefully that will bring us to the next point. And now, Nick, I think it's your turn to answer the second part of the question.
Thanks, Dami. Very happy to. So yes, I mean, as Dami has said, we got very comfortable with all around the club and with everyone we'd spoken to, and with Ross and the board. And as you know from previous things we've said, we were just about to conduct the transaction we'd all agreed on in a relatively short period of time, which in itself was quite surprising, how easily our minds met. And then Corona hit. And so we decided, well, maybe that's not the very best time to do something. So we put it on hold. But as you know, during the summer, we spent a lot of time talking to the board and thinking about things. And we then decided to make a first commitment to say, okay, let's show this commitment. We feel entirely comfortable. Let's go at least in with 30%, and we'll have that option to increase it at a later stage, hopefully post-Corona by May 22. At that stage, we would have thought that things were over by now, which, as we know, they're not. Yet at the same time, as we got more comfortable and as we were understanding the plans of the club and things which needed to be done, it became quite clear that strategically there are things which can bring the club further, which are in our interests as well. Like developing a dedicated training facility, which costs money, building up and rebuilding youth academy, investing in various parts of the club, which, if you don't have that financial certainty, and especially during Corona, the club wouldn't have undertaken. They would have put that on hold. They would have said, let's wait until we have more certainty. And so the club, and Ross approached us and said, would be willing to bring that commitment forward, which incidentally was an option. It wasn't a commitment, actually. It was an option to see how things are going and whether or not we would do this. And given that we were by then and by now already quite clear that we were going to exercise it, it was only natural that we would do that early in order to bring forward and to be able to make those investments into the club, which otherwise wouldn't have been possible. And I think it's important to state that these are structural investments. We're not investing in order to splash out the money on, doubling the team costs and just flash in the pan. This is a long-term topic. We feel totally on board with the community-led aspect of the club and with the board, that these are infrastructure investments, which over time, just after the history of the club and coming out of administration, is just basically the next step of rebuilding what you would expect a club of the size and of a standing of a Dunfermline to have. And that's what we're doing. And so we were quite happy to bring that forward. Excited because at the best of times, it's not easy to run a football club. Especially not when we have this distance and Corona, which we have between us at the moment. But as Damir said earlier, it's one thing saying you'd like to own and run a football club. I mean, that's like something which excites us sort of personally, but it has to dovetail into what the club stands for, where it stands in the community, the people you actually spend time with. Because as Damir correctly said, we've been through our careers. We don't need to go into something which is only going to be something which is sort of whatever, unpleasant. Quite the opposite. We want to spend time with people who are on the same wavelength and develop a club further. And I find that exciting, that we are on the same wavelength, and that it's, I think in all of the time and all the discussions we've been having, there's never been a situation where we haven't quite readily agreed on what is obviously the right thing to do. It's not often that you come across a relatively diverse group of people who all feel the same, and that's actually fun. in itself, it's something which is encouraging, and which bodes well for the future.
So we come in and we are not investors, we are more partners. That's from my side very important at the beginning on, and we really appreciate the work the board have done until now. They have done a great job, and they reached really good results, and on that basis I would like to improve things from my experience on. So, and first of all, I have to assess the situation at the club, but the precondition to assess things is to travel, to meet persons. So, and that is at the moment not possible. So, first of all, sorry. First of all, traveling, and then assess things, and then improve things on the basis the employers and the board have done before. That was one of the ideas, to use my network to recruit players from another pond. So that's at the moment a little bit more difficult in terms of the Brexit and the working permissions. So I have to see what happens in the future, and then maybe we can adapt the situation, the Brexit situation, on the recruitment of the club. He's a nice guy, and to be honest, to build up a relationship needs to meet people in person. So that's in my opinion the biggest issue, and I need to travel. So we have a we have a phone call every week. He explains things. I try to support things from Germany on, but that's too difficult. So I try to support him. I try to support the club in terms of recruitment, but at the moment that's really difficult. But I'm involved in all decisions the club have made in the past. So, and I was involved in the decision to sign Peter as well. So, and I'm happy that he's our coach, because when I watched, as Peter mentioned in his interview, so when I watched the first game from Dunfermline against Aloha, we won 4-1. So they had a really good structure in their game, and it was interesting to see how he let play his team, and that was the reason why I agreed as well as the other board members to sign Peter as a new manager at the club. I started, my plan was to consult investors, because I haven't understood why they run a football club without using the opinions of the fans, or without integrating the community, without integrating the fans. And St. Pauli is a big community club, and there are more advantages to work together with fans, with communities, than to make decisions by their own. And and our big target is to run the football club together with the persons who are now involved, and who have worked for the club in the past, and with the community. We know Dunfermline is a big community club, but we want to involve all the peoples, and then all together we can. It could lead to more power for the club, and more power lead to more, hopefully more success if we make the right decisions. From the sports side on, and that was one reason why we invested in Dunfermline. So Dunfermline has a big history from the past on, from the 60s. So they won the cup, they played international games, and we see a big potential in that club. So it's more a long-term project for us, and the sports targets are more to promote on a midterm, but to promote on a sustainable basis with a good structure, with a good team, with a good playing philosophy. Then it is easier to stay on a sustainable basis at the Premiership in Scotland. But as you know, it's not possible to plan promotion. So you just can increase the percentage of promoting. Last season, Hearts promoted to the championship, and then the budget is too high to promote or to be before the Hearts, and now Kilmarnock and one other and Hamilton relegated. So I think it's clear that it is a difficult task to promote, but on a midterm it could be possible, and it's our target.
There's a possibility with the youth academy. That's not totally finalized either, but that I would consider that a structural change. At the moment, it's run by FIFA, and we're thinking strongly of having our own academy. But Ross, is there a timing there right now that we can officially mention? I don't know. You more.
There's an intention to do that. We're in the process of applying for our own academy, but that won't happen until next calendar year. So that's another change, and that's great for me as chairman of the football club to see that we're getting our own academy back. That's been sorely missed. There was reasons why FIFA was put together at the time, but having our own academy is great for the future of the club, because people, supporters, I'm one of them, like to see local players coming through and representing the club. Eric, you're probably right. It does feel a wee bit like that, if I'm being honest. Looking forward, I mean, I always say that, and I'm sick hearing this, if I'm honest, players sign for this club and they always say, oh, it's a massive club, Dunfermline, I want to be here. That's great. Cherish your history, your heritage, but in life, you've got to look forward. That's the only thing that you can do. You can't change the past, you look forward. So we've got an exciting future, I believe, ahead of ourselves. And there's obviously a lot happening at the moment. New management team, new coaching staff, new medical staff. We've broadened the scope of the board with the experience and the expertise that the guys are providing, allied to what we already had at the club, because this isn't just all about financial. The guys are really quite humble. They're downplaying their own attributes that they'll be able to bring to the table. So it's strengthening the board going forward, Derek. But we also need to remember football is all about supporters. And I have to say that it was great having supporters back in the ground on Saturday. I felt quite emotional at the time, because it was just to hear a crowd again. And hopefully we can get even more back in on Saturday and the week after. And then we can get even more back thereafter. So no, I agree, Eric. It's, as I said earlier, very exciting times, and hopefully it is the rebirth of the club. Yeah, I hate to look back to that day when literally a gun was put to my head and said, if you don't, the club's going to go under. But we've all rebuilt the club. The community's got behind the club. I've got a fantastic board that's helped steer the club from that horrible point in time. We're not where we want to be. As the guys have said, there's plenty of growth yet in the club. But we want to do things in a sustainable manner, particularly at this club after everything that we went through, Alan, that you've referenced there. We don't want to go back to boom or bust. We need to be sustainable, but we've got to get the infrastructure right. So no, it is a wee bit surreal. I said before, back in September, at risk of repeating myself, when I went over to meet the guys, that Friday afternoon in Hamburg, I was pinching myself because I did think, why do they want to invest in Dunfermline? You know, when there's other football clubs that they could be investing in. So I'm absolutely delighted that they've chosen our club, my club, to invest in. And yes, it's a far cry from these dark days, Alan, for sure.